Hi there YouTube, Marv here. I've been checking out various ways of software emulating Windows PC from the 98 and XP era, and I've discovered that the fork of PCEm, 86 box, actually has an ARM native M1 MacOS port now, and I was actually quite curious to see whether or not I could run software at 100% or how fast it actually is. So yeah, a video quite similar to many of the other videos I've been doing on this channel. But yeah, I'll just fire up the emulator and just talk over it. So yeah, let's move to that footage. Right, okay, let's open up the location where these VM boxes are. What I've done is, because 86 box doesn't have a real front end allowing you to select various different configurations, what I actually did was that I created an 86 box install for just basically any configuration, and I figured, you know, let's do a whole plethora of things. For example, BeOS 501. So this is the latest. This has a new compiler, but it's actually slower. So let's run this. Oh, I did not run it before this directory. Let's see, it just takes a while to boot up. There we have it. So with a 233 megahertz Pentium and an BX440 motherboard, it actually performs rather nicely. It more or less sticks to close to 100%. There's some dips every. So BeOS, yeah, I've made other videos on it. BeOS is actually wow. This OS is 23 years old, or 22 and almost 23 years old. But yeah, it's inspired by the folk that actually used to work at Apple. They okay, so there's demos, GLT pot. They used to work at Apple. They were not very satisfied by the way things were going. This was in the beige box Apple era, and they wanted to use their knowledge for creating a multimedia-centered OS that would cater graphics designers, film people, and they had quite a few iterations of this OS, and it actually still continues to this day. Also made some videos on that. Maybe I'll link them as in the I format, you know, the linked videos. And chart. So this is not really a multi-core system that it's emulating, but it does do quite tremendous multitasking. And of course the video is not accelerated. This is just a regular standard, I think S3 video card that I'm actually emulating in this one. But yeah, sound, network, everything is working. So if you want to check out some old BeOS software, you can, using 86 box. Let's turn it off, shut down. Okay, and then you have to press Control-N to release the mouse, which I will, and then you can just turn it off like so. Or it's already turned off. So what else? This is also quite interesting. this may actually throw the same error. Yeah. I've just downloaded these, and then macOS is very careful about, you know, allowing you to open up an application. So this basically is a different hardware. This is a P5VX, so it's like a socket 7 motherboard, I believe, and it's a 166 megahertz. And I should actually do the BeOS thing where it doesn't check out. And let's do the verbose. So this actually is a precursor to OS X, and it's actually running on Intel hardware. So they were developing OS X on PC hardware, and they ended up making it available on PowerPC hardware. And later on, they moved to Intel yet again. There's something called Blue Box that allows you to actually run macOS software, classic macOS software on Rhapsody, but this is a developer release too, and it doesn't include the Blue Box thing. There are releases that do include Blue Box, and well, then you have the problem that the binaries aren't compiled for Intel, and you don't have Rosetta yet, at least not yet. So log out, power off. I'm overshooting here a bit. And you can Control Enter, and when it's finished, you can just turn it off. I'm actually quite pleased about my my MacMini. I'm curious whether or not if I can run NeoFetch, may actually be able to do it. NeoFetch. No, there's no NeoFetch on it. I used to have NeoFetch on most of my Mac systems as well. But yeah, it's a Mac Mini, first generation 2020 Mac Mini with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and it's running the latest Monterey. So this is actually quite interesting and buggy. This is a Windows 98 Pentium 166 MMX with a Voodoo 2 configured, and it's actually pretty much the exact same setup that I had back in the day, actually in 1997, 98. I had this motherboard, I had this graphics card. There's an S3 Verge DX, something like that, a Verge 64 VX, and a Voodoo 2. And yeah, I was running this with the first onset of 3D games. And of course, you really need to have this backdrop when you use a Voodoo 2, I think. This Windows version, it's a really weird Windows version, but at some point I had a DOSBox port that had an installation of Windows 98 running on it with an image. And that image I was able to import into PCEm and later x86 or 86 box. But it's really weird because it has some sort of weird update pack, and I did not install and configure it like this. I mean, it came like this, and what I did, because it used to have all the icons on the screen, I actually moved the icons off the screen into these folders, and there's actually a ton of demos that are contained within it. For example, the Alien vs. Predator Marine demo. And I'm not doing it full screen because there's all sorts of, how do you say that, all sorts of keys that actually will, if you use the control key and the arrow key, you'll be moved to another screen, another desktop, and that isn't the case if you just run this emulator not full screen. So, and it gives you an impression of, that it really is running on the. So start the Marine demo. It's actually quite interesting. These demos, there used to be a ton back in the day. They came on the covers of magazines and stuff, and they really gave you a sense of what it was all about. I may actually, I'll do it full screen because it's interesting to see that the renderer with this x86 box is actually Vulkan. Oh, that's not good. Am I dead? Yes, I'm dead. Before I even got to go full screen. You have to be careful not to press the control and the arrow keys, because I'll be moved to another. But yeah, this was actually quite spectacular back in the day. Of course, there's. Look. Another one? No, it's just their blood. That's quite intense. And I believe that the, let me see, can I? No, it just doesn't want to. I don't think it'll. Abort play, resume play. Alt F4. Yep. That's a shame. It's just, let's do a hard reset. I mean, the machine doesn't like it, being it being an MS-DOS machine, but I don't think. I think it just hang. So let's open it up yet again. And see whether or not it will actually boot up. I think the old software is still shutting down, the old instance. And it's not responding, so yeah. The ARM port isn't the best port yet. It's not as stable as you would want it to be. But and especially also with this this DOSBox install, because it's not really the the most optimal install. I believe all the hardware is detected properly, but yeah, it's a bit glitchy, I guess. And but it sticks to 100% most of the time. He says, well, the emulator dips to 82. So there's a Quake 3 demo, and Dr. Watson is actually reporting on a crash, and the screen size actually has been severely limited. So let's see if I can alter the settings on the screen. Wow, that's really. Or resize the desktop. Keep it. Yeah, this actually was common practice back in the day. Things used to be quite a fair bit more unstable. What else? Turok demo, Wipeout 3D demo. And let's do 800 by 600. It's doing Direct 3D. I mean, it's not the thing that a Voodoo 2 and a Voodoo 3 were best at, Direct 3D. They were best at their 3FX implementation, which was their own proprietary implementation. I believe it did borrow from OpenGL at some point or some bits, and there was a mini OpenGL implementation going. The good thing about running this not full screen is actually that you have a couple of icons on the lower left corner of the emulator, and you can I was just about to say, and you can deduce that the emulator probably hang because there's no hard drive light flashing, but there was. Yeah, I guess loading times, they're also pretty much emulated like they were.
3, 2, 1, go.
And what is a... Oh, look. Yeah. Ah, speed. Oh. Now, I'm always fascinated by wipeout. But what I'm also quite fascinated by is how awful all these games control. I mean, there's no real sense of control. I mean, I'm quite good at driving games, but there's just the way the physics work with this game, these game series, that it's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm just going, whoops, I think it's going to explode or something like that. Yeah. Ran out of time. To continue, go back to menu and quit as escape. Yes. And then we have a Quake 2 demo. So yeah, it seems that x86 box running Windows 98 doing a Voodoo 2 and a Pentium 166 MMX is actually quite working quite well. I'm not sure why there's no sound in this. It may be that one of the drivers hung, but well, it's actually quite good that there's no sound, because otherwise I'll be just flooded with all sorts of explosions and stuff. But as you can see, it actually runs rather well. I don't have any frame counters up, but I mean it's rather smooth. I don't think it's 60 frames per second. It must be somewhere between 25 or 40 or something like that. But it's smooth enough, and it's actually consistent. Which is actually quite good, because that makes things playable, I mean, it doesn't matter that the frame rate isn't the smoothest or the highest, but at least the emulation is consistent, and it doesn't really vary that much. Let me see, what else? Pod demo. Oh, there's a missing DLL. Motor Racer. These are all games that were also prevalent on the PlayStation, which of course is the console generational counterpart of these early 3FX Voodoo cards. Delphine software. Wow. I'm not sure. I don't think they still exist. An interactive demo, so it may be possible to race. So yeah, let's see if I can. Okay, I can't enter my name, but play solo. Single race. Continue. Start. Now this is not running at a very high frame rate. Actually, when I edit this video, I may actually end up enlarging the screen so that the visuals on the emulator window are actually enlarged, like on the last video. This is actually running rather smooth. What I found is that if you select a lower clocked Pentium system, and even a socket 7 motherboard. Probably they're less complex. The emulator fares a bit better when it comes to emulating it consistently. And I may have been a bit negative even perhaps, or sound a bit negative on the emulator when I compared it to Parallels. But I totally not intended to do that, because I'm actually very impressed by PCEm and of course now 86 box. And if you encounter any DOS games that won't run on DOSBox, this actually is the ultimate DOSBox. You probably could install MS-DOS 6.2.2 on it very easily, but I found that replay, yeah, oh, it's not available, so that's the demo for you. Quit race, and just exit, continue,
select your race,
back,
select your mode,
back. Well, that's the typical way that these racing games would work. These hierarchical interfaces that you just can only navigate by moving backwards and forward in a fixed set of progressive screens. But yeah, let's turn this off. Oh, there's some sort of remnant of a program. Let's shut this off. Shut this off and see if I can actually show you how a 233 megahertz. So this is a Pentium 2 a Pentium 233. So it's a socket 7 Pentium running at 233 megahertz. Basically, it's this similar hardware, I believe, than the other one. Let's see what the BIOS is. Yeah, it's the same socket 7. I believe it's socket 7 motherboard, and it is running at 100%. And I didn't shut it down properly, so you have this scanning thing, and with 3 drives, you actually get to enjoy the scan thrice, if you're lucky, and the system was actually accessing all drives as it was. Yeah, and basically Pentium 233, Voodoo 3, Pentium 2 Voodoo 3, those were the machines I was running back in the day. Also the move to Windows XP. And at this point in time, I actually moved from dial-up modems to ADSL. I was one of the first people, the first batch of people that actually moved to ADSL back in the day. There's a ton of games that work quite well on it. This is a network thing that just doesn't want to, so I have to run it from within the, I have to run a different executable with Hexen. Hexen is pretty decent, I think. Let's see what happens if I make that full screen with
dacht dat ik vanavond toch gewoon voor mezelf.
Oké.
En dat we morgen dan gaan.
Is goed. Ja, is goed. So this is configured to control, and if you use control and the arrow keys, then this happens. Very handy if you, but it's not very handy if you wanna, and the key just keeps hanging. Let me see. View, not full screen, and perhaps we can increase the zoom. Let's do factor 2. Yeah. So if you use the control key now, it doesn't flip the screen. So that's for me also a reason to use this within a window. But there's something about the way, at least this game works and the emulator, that it just doesn't enjoy. I press left and right now, and it just doesn't want to turn. So what actually is best to do is, let me see. And now, of course, it's way too big. And just go full screen. Yeah. What is actually quite good to try is actually to go to the games, Hexen, run the setup, and define the mouse and the keyboard as, let me see, controller type. Set controller type, keyboard and mouse. Configure controller, keyboard, move up. So make it a modern control scheme, because these newer use is space, fire is control, turn left, no, turn left is left and right, strafe or left, yeah, so strafe is always on, and you have inventory, okay, speed is on is shift, I guess only the right shift works, strafe is on, and you'll be able to fly. Yeah, I'm not sure how that will work, but jump, yeah, I can define it on the mouse. So F10 to accept, and then configure controller, and then the mouse, and then the fire button is, and jump is the right button, and yeah, the mid button move forward, and strafe on, that's not something I'd use, but so if you save the parameters and launch Hexen, what happens actually is that you bypass the weird control thing with the cursor keys, and you get to enjoy a full experience, you know, without flipping through another desktop or something like that. So, and actually, this runs very well. It actually it turns you around so fast that it's actually quite disorienting. But yeah, this is a very fast MS-DOS implementation. I mean, it really is functioning tremendously well. And now it has lost focus on the mouse or something like that. It has lost focus on the mouse, so, and I believe that's because the emulator actually hangs. So yeah, I mean, it's not perfect yet. Well, there's others. There's a Pentium 2 233 MHz Voodoo which is a different platform. It's a more advanced platform. The Pentium is a Pentium 2, which is actually quite different from the Pentium 1 233. It does have the same clock frequency as the I'm not sure what this actually is all about. It's a very small window. Let me see. Oh, it's a scale. Oh, wait. Perhaps yeah, I did the scaling factor. So you get, yeah, it's not 4:3, but you actually get to enjoy full screen without. Oh, it does. So it actually, you really need. Yeah, then the scaling factor is actually something I do not want. I just want the, let me see, a sizable windows, not a resizable window. And I just want a full screen. Yeah. Let's, as you can see, this emulator really is not, and then it crashes. So it was already crashing. So it's still in, yeah, it's very much a beta, in a beta state. But now we have a regular window size. And you get to see the speed. The cool thing is that it seems to be rather speedy. The new recompiler you don't want to use because it uses a different CPU recompiler, and it actually turns out to be slower than the current latest release. Yeah, I'm not gonna wait for that. It's just gonna take forever. So this actually is running at the same clock speed as the other one. And I believe first person, well, there's no hexen in there, so I have to go to the other drive. Let's do a similar setup. Let me see, games. And I believe the sound has cut out. No, it doesn't. It didn't. Okay. So hexen, let's run this setup. I'm not sure why this has a shortcut, but let's remove that. Setup and define the controller. Keyboard. Oh, look, that already has been set up properly, I guess. Yeah. Turn accept, and then the other one, the mouse. Yeah, it's already been properly set up. Save parameters and launch hexen. And I may actually want to use this full screen again. I mean, you have to believe me that it's all just, you know, it remains at 100% all the time. But does a Pentium 2 at 233 megahertz, does it actually improve? Oh. Does it improve on the Pentium, the regular Pentium one? It seems that controller type, keyboard and mouse, configure controller, keyboard. So it became blank when I tried to. Well, it's even more fast. It's even faster. So if this actually becomes a tad more stable, because you don't want to, you don't want to have the game crashing on you, at any time, because yeah, you lose all your progress. But yeah, if this becomes a bit more stable. And perhaps this actually is a bit more stable than, this instant runs a bit more stable than the other. But as you can see, it actually, I mean, this is as fast as I've ever seen this game run. So I can say that for MS-DOS and Windows 98 games, this is not a bad deal. And if you define your controls properly, you don't have to worry about that happening. Yeah, I don't think that the emulator is particularly fond of those things happening. Sparkade, this is cool. I'm not sure if this actually runs, yeah. Berserk, no. Amadar. This was before MAME was a thing, where the first emulators, the first arcade emulators were for DOS and Linux, and basically these came before MAME, but they also are all about preservation and running similar games with similar hardware, because the games that Sparkade actually presents us with are actually games that run on a couple of hardware sets. And it's also the number three for coins and one to start. So a lot of the things that MAME actually came up with, Sparkade also did. And around this time, MAME actually was just having its first incarnations, actually. And of course, it was just absolutely amazing to I mean, this was when, good games, good MS-DOS games, they look like this. So it was basically, and here of course you have the same issue that if you use the cursor keys while shooting, which is hard to avoid, but then of course you can use different. Yeah, you can map different keys, but yeah, that's a bit of a pain when it comes to macOS. I mean, it's great to be able to shift. You don't have to exit the emulator just to quickly check on something, But yeah. But this emulator really runs full speed, and it runs consistently. The menu is just you go about the menus in a very consistent way. It's just oh wow, oh, this is cool. This probably is one of those creative Midi. Oh yeah, this is a Midi player. I remember being quite fond of these softwares that came with a singing text. Spider.
The easy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out.
Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. Now easy weasy spider went.
Wow, that is something.
Text-to-speech is our text-to-speech really neat how to be it's real speech being type in and
Yeah. That is just weird. But yeah, those were the things that made the PC stand out more and more, you know. Multimedia was introduced. Of course, I believe this was the PCEm, PCEm or PC, I'm not sure what the, I believe it was PCEm, but the PC multimedia standard. Of course, it all kicked off with Windows XP actually being, this is a true 32-bit card game, because Windows 98 also was capable of running 16-bit Windows 3.1 games still. So what do we have? We have Frogger 97. I believe Frogger 97 is using the Voodoo. So basically, this is Frogger reimagined. Now, I always wondered what was up with that frog that couldn't swim. Obviously not meant to have any role of importance in this. Oops, paused. Yeah, you're doing something that the system doesn't expect, and they haven't found a way to remedy it, so let's just shut the whole thing down. And the final bit is actually to check out the Pentium 2 233 megahertz Windows XP install, because what was mentioned on about PCEm is actually that it basically is best at Windows 98 and below, and Windows XP, although you can run it on it, it's considered just too much of a draw on the system resources, and you can actually see it dip to 56, 40, and but the thing is, it does seem to be quite consistent. I mean, if it loads, if it settles down, and you know the extra hardware bits that are emulated, if they settle down properly, you actually get something that is more consistent in speed and actually goes up to 100%. You know, if you don't use the device, it goes up to 100%, more or less, and you can run the pinball game. It starts up full speed. I mean, this was so cool. I mean, Windows XP, instead of solitaire, you got, you know, a pretty decent pinball game, and you could actually have it sound quite nice as well. Now, I believe this actually is running Windows XP a fair bit better than the original PCEm was. I believe that already is a couple of years old, and this, of course, is continuous development. He says, and then it just goes down to 30%. Yeah, stuff like that just doesn't happen when you're running the other OS, the 1632-bit OS. But yeah, not bad. And let's see how 3D Mark fares on it. Yeah. And these weird clicking noises, well, they're probably because of the system having to work really hard to just get all the, run the demo, just to get all the tidbits working nicely together. Especially disk operation seems to slow it down. I do have a network card installed. I use FTP to actually communicate to a small FTP server on the Mac to just get some files off it. Let's just see how this actually runs. And it doesn't run bad. It actually runs very comparable. So you could say that if the hardware settles down and it just doesn't pull a lot of requests from the main emulation loop, then it runs pretty much on a similar speed and frame rate as the Windows 98 counterpart would. But the thing is, this software is pretty much single-threaded. I mean, if you're smart, you actually have 4 threads rendering the Voodoo graphics. But this actually is running it smoother than before. This actually runs pretty much as fast as it can, with pretty solid and I just can't bear to just run a complete benchmark, so you just have to but this sticks at this basically sticks at a solid 100%, and you can actually see that in the demo experience because it runs pretty good. So on the MacMini, running the native version of 86box actually is probably the best way to experience MS-DOS and Windows 98 around that era, because the DOSBox implementation, I'm not sure if that actually is native ARM yet. I'm using Boxer, which is not native ARM, I believe. I could check. Let me see. Applications, emulators. Where's Boxer? Info. It's an Intel application, so that's actually a bit slower than you want it to be. Amiga emulation, also Apple Silicon, that's cool, that's really native. UTM, I'm going to show that, that's actually Qemu, which is also capable of some pretty decent emulation. Redream, that is also universal, so a lot of these emulators have been made into universal applications. Yeah, but as you can see, it just runs it in a very consistent speed. It just has to settle down. And it's actually quite impressive. And you would think, well, there seems to be overhead. It's running a solid as it is at 233, but if you bump it up one notch to like 266, it'll stutter way too much. It'll just be stutter mania. But yeah, the thing, of course, with the way this is programmed, it being mostly a single thread, is actually good because they get to control everything. You don't have to yeah, it's you can make it cycle exact because you can have the entire thing do what it has to do in one cycle without having to time things and stuff. But yeah, the problem is your cycles, are your cycles fast enough for the system to be actually full speed? Now there's another thing that's actually quite interesting, and that's Qemu, UTM virtual machines. Now UTM, that is a front end on Qemu, and I believe Power Mac and Windows XP and ReactOS. Okay, so let's let's quickly. Qemu is quite interesting. It allows you to virtualize. It's a hypervisor, but it also allows you to emulate, and it emulates various different platforms quite fast, actually, quite speedy. And here you actually have to click for it on the mouse capture thing for the mouse to be caught. And it's really weird, but Qemu emulates most of the systems with a processor stating it runs at around a gigahertz. And I'm not sure if that actually is the case, but this is 9.1 running with PowerPC emulation actually. If you go to System Profiler, PowerPC 900 megahertz, AGP graphics, and it does it actually quite well. I have some installs that I don't have present here that actually run some of the games that I've been out there. Of course, the 2D games, not the 3D games, because there's no Rage graphics card being emulated. ReactOS is also something quite interesting. It is something I figured Wine would actually turn into someday, but this actually is a re-implementation of, I believe, Windows 2X, Windows 2K, I mean. So it's like Windows XP, Windows 2K. It's a complete re-implementation of the Windows NT5. So it's a complete re-implementation of a PCI device. Oh, and I have to click the mouse capture thing. And I'm not sure why it's not capturing. Release. No, it's not. It's not. It's weird. Install. I have to keep the mouse button depressed for the cursor to move, which is weird. But yeah, this is not very compatible actually. At least it's not compatible with real hardware, and as you can see, it doesn't really like. Yeah, and it may be the specific set of hardware. You can actually have a lot of different PC Pentium 2 era PCs. Qemu basically does the Windows XP machine that you would love to be able to emulate on 86 box, but this is just very fast. But the thing is that it doesn't support 3D acceleration. I mean, UTM does. It does support 3D acceleration, but it's preliminary. So it only will do it in Linux-based machines because the way the graphics drivers are implemented on those operating systems, it's actually easier to port, and Windows just uses it in a different way. You can have accelerated or at least enhanced 2D graphics by the built-in Visa driver that it uses and open. So this actually runs full speed, but you can't run let me see, if I select this, it turns to full speed, and you can actually have the system do 4:3 or like so. And if you run pinball here. But the thing is, this would actually be, I mean, the way this performs, it actually performs very solid. This would be about as good, I guess, as Parallels would be if only 3D graphics were supported. Let's turn it down. Oh, and let me see. Game paused, music, game paused. Oh bloody hell. I'm tilting. But somehow the audio is lagging a bit, and it may be due to the fact that I'm using a user-based sound driver within OS X to be able to have the volume control on TVs. Because for some reason, Microsoft, Apple, in their absolute wisdom, have decided to make the volume control of the Macs not work on TVs. Probably because people, I mean, their reasoning probably is people are using the volume on their TV. They use their remote, so they, you don't allow the machine that's hooked up to have control over the volume. But I'm using my TV as a monitor mostly, so I would love to have the choice, but you can't. So you have to use third-party software to be able to control the volumes in a software way. This is the case ever since, I don't know, OS X Leopard, I believe, or above that, a bit above that. But yeah, of course, the whole Windows XP tour is in there.
A new version of Windows that brings your PC to life.
Oh, brings your PC to life. It's actually quite interesting to watch. Yeah, it runs everything really well. I believe I haven't hooked up any other drives, but yeah, it basically runs it very fast. But yeah, it doesn't have any 3D acceleration, and I think the added value of Windows XP is, of course, the more enhanced 3D games that it ran. But for that, you just have Parallels also on this Mac, because you just fire up Parallels, and because it's ARM, it will only run ARM software. But it does run it quite decently. Now this Mac only this Mac only has 8 gigabytes of RAM, so you can basically only have 4 gigabytes of RAM available in the system for Windows. And I've defined 4 of the cores to Windows, so it's like a 4-core, 4-thread machine. Memory is 4 gigabytes, and the GPU is the Parallels graphics adapter. Not sure if 3D Mark actually runs. I just installed these just to run as a demo, because I've shown DuckStation and the Redream, and I've showed that software running on it. And I'm not sure. It may work, it may not work. That's always, that's actually quite interesting. There was this white square where it would actually indicate which processor it is actually running on, but yeah, it couldn't define the processor. So let's see if I can run the demo. I want to run the demo using recommended settings. Yes. So basically, if you do want to run XP software, you're probably better off trying to use the software on Windows 11 using the compatibility ticks, because on XP you have or on 11 you have the everything enhanced. And Microsoft has its own version of Rosetta. It really runs it very fast. It's a Pentium 2 machine with AVX2, I believe, or it's lacking it, I'm not sure. It's a bit different from the Apple approach. But as you can see, I mean, the MacMini is just running circles around the Intel, but not in Parallels. The thing is that, yeah, Parallels, you can't virtualize an Intel-based operating system, but thank goodness for ARMS Windows, and I think this really shows off how good ARM has become. It's actually quite a bit more efficient than the x86 platform, although I must say that, you know, with the 5000 series desktop processors and some of the mobile platforms, AMD really is being very successful in low-powered devices, and Intel is actually getting there as well with their economy cores. Yeah. This is just, you know, solid. There's no hiccups. It just runs it like it should. And I'm very curious how the teams behind Parallels, and I believe it's a German firm that's behind Parallels. I wonder how they are able to actually do it. This is just insane. But this is an Intel application. You can actually check that out. Details, compatibility, service pack general. Yeah, I'm not sure where it says it, but so this is also an Intel application, and I have the Mac version, the OS X version running as well. This is Benchmark Valley, and I'm just going to do the demo. It's running, I believe, oh, we'll see. High settings, high preset. And of course I'm also using this system to capture, because you can actually see that little red dot. I think you'll be able to see it hovering on top of the frame counter. So this is running at 1080p, I believe. And it's actually running it quite nicely. I mean, it's not stellar, but imagine running this on a Raspberry Pi. So, yeah, it's a very nice application. You can also go out of the demo mode and fly around freely and just check out the landscape. You'll see that they actually put a lot of effort into designing the various bits of landscapes. There actually are two distinct, or three valleys actually. You are able to go through that, fly through that. And of course it's just, you know, a lot of nature, a lot of bushes and flowers and but also rocks and rivers and stuff. So it's actually quite interesting to check it out. And yeah, I'm just amazed by how this actually runs. I mean, it shouldn't run this good. I think, you know, it's just insanity. Now the Heaven, this was running high DirectX. Oh, I'm curious if we try OpenGL, how would that run? Because OpenGL is not something that macOS is keen on, but you can actually run OpenGL software on Windows. And I'm curious, I mean, OpenGL is an older standard. Will it be as fast? No, it's not as fast, I think. No, it's slower. It's quite interesting. And perhaps the DirectX 9 implementation is actually a bit better. I'm not sure. Let's see. It's a bit more simpler than 11 or 12. So yeah, running older software. I mean, yeah, I've been showing a ton of software solutions, but still the best way to experience Windows XP or MS-DOS is basically running on the real hardware. Because then you get the best, most consistent. Yeah, this is pretty much on par with DirectX 11, I think. Perhaps a bit more speedy, I'm not sure, but pretty much the same. I think what you do see is that DirectX 11 brings, it does look a bit more simple, I think. Let's check out if we do, I mean, these leaves and stuff, there's some definition lacking. Let's see if there really is a noticeable I mean, I think there is a difference, actually. I think there were more lighting effects and there was more definition on the leaves and stuff. So yeah, there's these rays, these God rays things that are in shadows. Not sure if there were shadows in the other one. And there's, yeah, just because there are lights of ray and more shadows, it is different. There's more shadows and more light. I believe the textures on the plants themselves are actually very similar, but yeah, in between the trees there's actually rays of light penetrating. So actually that is a big difference, you know, the lighting on DirectX 11. Okay, interesting. Now let's go back to the Heaven benchmark. The Heaven benchmark actually is a bit newer, I believe. Yeah. So let's have it at high, run. But yeah, for not too demanding Steam games, this actually is a very viable, low-powered, very quiet system to game on. But it's yeah, it's hard to pinpoint how good it is exactly. You just need to be able to run some games on it, I guess. Yeah, but this actually is also a very nice demo with, you know, shading, with embossed graphics, and it's running it rather smoothly. And the funny thing is that if you run this natively on Mac, you know, the Intel port, it performs pretty much the same. So so that just goes to show that the overhead that emulating Windows actually has on the system just, you know, doesn't seem to be having a big impact on the performance. I guess there's enough cores present. So this is running a bit slower. It's like in the 20s. Let's turn on my PlayStation 4 controller. Redream. Will it work? Will it work? Yeah, it will work. So this is an emulator running, well, a virtualizer running an emulator.
Capcom presents.
This just runs everything full speed. Oh, that's a bit of a thing. You actually get to exit. Oh, and it actually does the overlay for the games and stuff. I wanna get rid of that. Yes. And let's exit this. I'm not sure if macOS and Windows likes this. I may actually have to just do that and just have it connect again, like so. What else was I going to show you? Because it's also a bit of a demonstration of the Mac One software, I guess. Qemu is actually also using the same underpinnings as UTM. It's using the same emulator, but it's also running 3D hardware acceleration to some point. Now the Xbox has an NVIDIA graphics chip, and for some reason, yeah, it's not picking up the controller, and that's because I used it in Parallels, so it may have to exit Parallels and open this again for it to actually capture. No, it's not, is it? So turn it off, turn it on, and it's still not capturing. Input. Yeah, it's not detecting. So is it detecting? Isn't it detecting another software as well? Let's see. EtherSX2, the newest one. Let's go to Jack and Daxter. EtherSX2, I mean, official development stopped on it, but still new builds are being made available on the website. So it's pretty much on par with the PlayStation the regular PlayStation ports. And this actually does away with some of the graphical errors that used to be present in the game. And this, running the regular port, would just drop to 45 frames per second. This just basically remains a solid 60 frames per second. And this game used to exhibit a ton of graphical issues with the eyes not being rendered properly. Actually,
My life searching for the answers.
there were. Oh, we have to have this intro thing.
Others failed to find.
So if you are on an M1 Mac and you want to emulate the PlayStation 2, you really need to find EtherSX2 and just run the latest version, which is M1 only. It doesn't run on Intel. And what makes it so fast probably is that it uses metal. It may actually be possible to use Vulkan as well, I'm not sure, but
Every bone in
yeah.
my body tells me that the answers rest on the shoulders of a young
Yeah,
boy.
and the eyes on previous versions of RPCSX, what is it? No, PCSX2, they would be like black squares blacked out. And this basically is just showing it like it's supposed to. And
So it seems the answer begins not with careful research or sensible
but this actually is pretty amazing. Shut down the virtual machine. Yeah, it's really weird that it doesn't want to connect. Oh, now it does. So this emulator by default doesn't come with the dashboard, but you can actually get the dashboard on the emulator by searching this disk, Visual TNT. What it actually is a disk that people used back in the day to boot their systems with. Let me see, restart. And it's like pretty late on, but you could actually, when your system was modded, you could actually options avanzadas, explore this duro. But you can actually, if you go to the you could actually you can activate, deactivate your system. You can copy an entire hacked dashboard on it, or what you could do is actually that there's the original dashboard is there as well. So it's actually quite interesting. But let's see how Project Gotham Racing has progressed, if it has progressed at all. Debug video. Let's move it up here. Because it used to be really slow. Especially there would be a very huge difference between in-car view and exterior car view. Load existing driver. If all is well, there's me on it. Yeah, this is basically what it would run on. This emulator, actually, if you want to have the best experience, you will run the Linux version. For some reason, that actually is a lot more. Yeah, because this. On the Mac M1, it really. this is just as bad as the first versions of the, or they're just slow, it's not bad, it's just as the first versions of the emulator. Yeah, what else? Oh yeah, people have been asking about RPCS 3, PlayStation 3 emulation, and yeah, why, you know, some people think that you just because I show certain games running, that, you know, they just can pick up any game and they expect the emulator to just run it like any other game. But the PlayStation 3 being such a different beast actually from PC or Mac hardware, and it being very, very how do you say that, multi-threaded, using more executable units available in parallel than most PCs or Macs would have. Yeah, this is the, I should disable that, because there's no need for me to skip to those games. Let me see, Afterburner. And they expect every game, just, you know, because certain games run very well, they expect all the games to run well, but they just don't, because a lot of these games that run well use only a few threads, for example, and highly more advanced games actually they're less likely to work very well. Oh yeah, I was actually interested to see whether or not I could run emulators on the emulated Xbox or PlayStation. And as you can see, there's Westmere objects, so that's actually how this emulator works. It uses Rosetta, which is a Westmere class Intel processor, and it has all the threads of the M1 chip available, and there's 8. But 4 of them are high performance and the other one are economy, or, you know, so they're not all as fast, and that basically has a bit of an issue, just like the Intel machines with the performance cores and the economy cores. ROMs. So I'm not sure if this will be possible. Let's see if Musha Alest is on here. There's some weird black missing lines. I'm not sure what's up with that, but yeah, most of the time actually homebrew like this is among the first stuff that actually will run on emulators like this. Because they're less likely to be extremely multi-threaded. Optifons, why not? Compiling shaders, yeah. So it's just, yeah, it's just a recompile Genesis emulator. You know, it's just, I mean, there's no real reason why it wouldn't start, I guess. But it's interesting. What's also interesting is something that used to be a thing on the PlayStation 2 emulator. I might still check it out actually, if it works. You know, running PlayStation 1 games, it's actually possible on RPCS 3. It's enhanced enough for it to work. Now on a real PlayStation 3, you would be able to insert a disc, it would read it, and it will just play it. These are PSN packaged, morphed discs that run actually within an emulated PlayStation environment. But this just runs it as well as any other emulator, and perhaps even slightly more compatible because it's you know, a Sony emulator. And of course, sadly, this game only uses the digital controls. But the fact that this runs actually, because there's actually an interesting video about the programmer of this game actually explaining how they managed to pull this off, because this actually already, I mean, it's among the first games, I believe, but this actually does things on the PlayStation that aren't possible. I believe they use self-modifying code. They actually make in a very hacky way. They make use of all the resources that aren't available all the time. They sort of, you know, make them available all the time. They really do some fancy tricks. And for this game to run at all, an emulator really has to be capable of reproducing all that weird hardware-specific stuff. But as you can see, it just runs at full speed. Yeah, it runs at full speed, so that's actually quite interesting. Dark Souls. Dark Souls is one of these games, it says it's playable, and on PC it's playable, but this is a game that really makes a lot of PCs struggle. Why? Well, because it uses a lot of resources. I believe it really uses, you know, the multi-threaded capabilities of the graphics engine, and it really uses the CPU in a way, so it really struggles on. This is one of the games that are just hard to run. And I believe what is most difficult about from what I read from the articles that the authors actually wrote, is that the way memory works in the PlayStation 3 is actually quite substantially different, and the way memory is transferred around. You know, you need that for textures, you need that for binary blobs, you need that for a lot of modern games to be able to work well. You know, similar like the graphics bar or the advanced bar, or what AGP did back in the day. You know, shifting large amounts of memory, you know, in clock speed, in a clock cycle, possible. Now the thing is that PC memory works completely different. A lot of the host platforms that RPCS3 runs on actually use memory in a very different way, and I thought I understand correctly that the way the emulator has to figure out how to shift around the memory is actually the biggest bottleneck, because a lot of systems actually have enough cores for the multi-threaded apps to work, but it's just the memory and the timing of it all. And you actually see that. I mean, that this works at all is just insanity, because you have a system that an application that recompiles all the binaries, all the libraries of the PlayStation OS, which basically is a sort of Linux-like thing, Unix-like thing, and it loads in the executables, the PlayStation executables, recompiles them, and allows the emulator to execute those more or less natively recompiled within the constraints of those translated or recompiled libraries. So there's this whole system, operating system, that's been recompiled, and then you have these applications, these games that just have a tremendous amount of multi-threaded parts running on various bits, on various CPU cores on the system, using different CUDA cores, you know, cores on your graphics card. It's really weird that it actually runs at all. And one would expect, you know, with the Rosetta thing, that it just would not run at all, but it runs surprisingly well, actually above what you would expect. For some reason, this thing is something that this Rosetta implementation is pretty good at. And I've not gotten this game to run nicely on my PC at all. It's playable, but it's just always been a mess. And I'm actually quite curious. This is the first time I run this, how it actually runs, because, well, it's a bit of a beast. Especially there would be a lot of graphical issues, lighting, you know, I mean, this game really looks very nice. And from what I saw from the menu, it's already, so it's like Half-Life. It's already looking very nicely. Cancel. New game. Yeah, blood on. Camera, yeah, let's just. Now, what this version of the emulator struggles with is that I'm not sure whether or not Rosetta can make the distinction between the efficiency cores and the performance cores. And there would be timing issues popping up every once in a while, you know, because threads would be lazy, because if it's running on an economy core, it would be different. But I believe in the emulator there's actually a setting where you can let the emulator take control of the scheduling, or you could have the host operating system take control of the scheduling. And I think if you tinker with that setting, you may actually have something that that may prevent severe stuttering when efficiency cores are running stuff that they're not supposed to run, or better not run. Oh wow, this actually is, yeah, you can actually see that there's some bits lagging behind a bit, and that's something, if you run more elaborate programs, that's stuff that you would see. These errors you would not necessarily have on a system that that has all these cores. Oh, this runs like super weird. It's like even fast. Yeah, but stuff like this, you know, that, oh look, the light. Yeah. So, oh, there's this weird critter. Can I fight? Am I supposed to fight it, or I'm just gonna go back away from it? So yeah, you can see some stuttering going on, and that's probably because of the threads having some difficulties in linking up properly. Let's see. Yeah, look, you see, sound stuff is waiting too sleepy, and those are things that you would see on the log of this emulator running on the Mac more than you will see on the PC, I think. So, and excellent. Not sure if this actually will work. We did run this at Circle to copy from use. Oh, it needs the Hexen files. Yeah, I don't have the Hexen file. Well, I do have them emulated, but not on a USB stick. So, oh, like so. And then on the cursor, it's just very hard to see. Stop. But just probably it'll probably hang now. Oh, it doesn't. So, yeah. Let's see if I yeah, this QuickTime Player, of course. Yeah, I'm doing a screen recording. So yeah, I guess this is it. Just, you know, checking out the MacMini PC emulation on the Mac Mini, you're best off using Parallels, but the other things, UTM, yeah, it may be possible to run a version of an Intel Linux, for example, and no, it needs to be ARM. So yeah, so on ARM you're pretty limited to Parallels if you want to have real native, super fast Intel-based applications running. And yeah, that's just about it. I think I'll just edit this together in one of these editing softwares that I can find on my Mac, and then just upload it to YouTube and just have a go at it. See ya, thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and see you in the next video.